I remember we were like on B or something. Send me the file. Merci. I'm ready now. Right. Right. Yeah, and degrading. I mean, that's another thing, right? It's meant to degrade them, so. Right. We left off? Oh, right. Okay. And you said it was page 39, right? Oh, okay. Okay, perfect. Okay, so do you want me to begin or do you want to start? Okay, so C. Defendants intentionally impede and deny access to counsel for detainees in Broadview. It is defendants' policy to practice and prohibit detainees at Broadview from contacting counsel and to bar lawyers from calling or visiting clients confined there. Defendants systematically deny detainees access to their attorney or prospective attorneys at a time when their need for legal counsel is extraordinarily acute. With access to counsel, these are really short. I'll just read to the end of 116. With access to counsel, detainees work with their attorneys to file petitions for bond, habeas, and asylum, rely on their attorneys to inform them of their rights in immigration proceedings, and cancel them in regarding relief that may be available to them if they choose to fight their removal in immigration court. Attorneys can also intervene on behalf of individuals who are authorized to live or work in the United States, who have pending legal claims barring their transfer, or who were otherwise arrested and detained by federal agents without a legitimate legal basis. Yeah, the payphones located in some of the holding rooms. Also, for those of you in YouTube chat, since you mentioned echo, let me know if it still echoes. The payphones located in some of the holding rooms are shared by all detainees. There is no privacy around the payphones. The system is confusing, unpredictable, and often does not work. The prepaid card is typically is inoperative or does not last the full 5 minutes. The free 20-second call often fails to connect or does not stay connected enough for the recipient to add funds. Stephen Hale tried to call his wife several times, but the call never connected. Her phone never rang. No one else in the holding room with him was able to successfully connect through payphone. Both the prepaid card and the free 20-second calls failed. Mm-hmm. Right. Yep. Right. Right. And then another thing is their lawyers aren't necessarily even being allowed to show up. Right. Like that's another thing. Is like they might be able to call them, but whether or not they can actually see their clients is, but that is there was another report too. I went over it on my stream, but it's called "We Must Take the Children Away" or "We Must Take the Kids Away," and it's essentially where they use the fact that um, they use the fact that technically speaking, when they would take the parents, right? So they had a whole family. When they would take the parents, the U.S. Marshals would escort them to immigration court or whatever. Then DHS, ICE, etc. They would say, "Well, we don't know. We don't know." You can only hear me. Well, let's fix that. What about now? Is that better? Can you? I don't know if you want to talk a bit. Wait, try it again.
Hello.
I think it should work now. Yes. But thank you, reference room. I appreciate that for letting me know. So, one of the things that is also important to keep in mind is that they will also use the fact that their children are in a different detention. Like technically, they're no longer in their custody, right? And so then they'll say like, well, we don't know where they are because they're no longer in our custody. Perfect. Thank you. And so that means that they will use that as another way to also make them sign their rights away and to effectively. Perfect. Thank you so much, both of you. So that is a horrifying thing that is done, right, to pressure the parents, and it has even resulted in like a forget how old. I almost want to say 10, but it could have been a little maybe 12, but still a young boy that was deported before his parents. Like his parents had no knowledge of where he was, and he had already been deported to Mexico. But they were still trying to get them using the idea if they could meet with their son again, as a way to get them to sign away their rights and to say like, oh, I will just self-deport or etc. But yeah. When detained individuals ask to speak to their lawyer or to call a prospective lawyer, officers ignore them or explicitly tell them there is no way to communicate with attorneys at Broadview. Sometimes they directly intervene to shut down legal calls, which again, this is completely against their constitutional rights. Every person in the United States has is protected under the Constitution. Like there is no reason why they should be doing this, but they are doing this in order to try to pressure them to sign away their rights. So Jane Doe informed officers at Broadview that she needed to speak with her lawyer. They responded that she could not talk to her lawyer because she was just going to be deported. She repeatedly asked officers to let her speak with her lawyer, but the officers ignored her. While Doe was at Broadview, she did not witness anyone who had the opportunity to talk to a lawyer. And again, this was something mentioned in the introduction, is that even if you could make contact with your lawyer, they don't allow the lawyers inside of the center. And again, you're afforded no privacy, which is like something that is guaranteed, right? Attorney-client privilege, so...
Juan Gaspar Nochebuena witnessed detainees asking officers if they could speak with their lawyers. Officers told the detainees to wait, but none were ever allowed to speak with a lawyer. An officer permitted William Gonzalez to call his wife using his cell phone. Gonzalez's wife happened to be with his immigration attorney, Herrera, at the time of the call. When the officers heard Herrera's voice and learned that he was an attorney, the officer told Gonzalez to end the call. The officer then reached for the phone and hung up the call himself.
Which, again, completely illegal. There should be, under no circumstances, the fact that they are reaching out their hands, yanking out the phone, and clicking it so that way it's hung up, and it's just no. Let me see how long this is. Oh yeah, I'll read the rest of them. Valentin Totopolito was never allowed to use the phone to call anyone. An officer told him that he did not need an attorney and that he could speak to an attorney when he got to the Texas detention facility. Totopolito was taken straight from Broadview to the U.S.-Mexico border and instructed to cross the border. He never went to a Texas facility. So again, they are being deceptive at all times, right? And yet, again, when it comes to the issue of human rights and everything, they are still guaranteed their constitutional rights and their human rights. But the fact that in this case they were saying, "Oh, you don't need your attorney. Just wait until you get to the Texas center," just to then be taken to El Paso or Laredo, and then just essentially coerced into, more or less, one might say, into crossing the border, right? Because it's not like he can really say no. Is a huge issue. Jack Doe repeatedly told officers he had a lawyer and asked to call her, but the officers denied him access. When Samuel Ochoa arrived at Broadview, he asked to call his attorney, but the ICE officer told him no.
Which is just insane. It's not even, like you said, the worst part about all this is it's not even attorneys aren't just allowed, they're prevented from even making a call, so that potentially their attorneys don't even know where they are, I also believe talked about in the introduction as well, that that attorneys have to literally figure it out themselves, and even if they do, there's no guarantee that they're going to be even able to speak to their client. Santos Robelito Altamirano informed officers he had a lawyer and asked to speak with his lawyer multiple times, but officers refused and responded that you have no rights to a lawyer. You have no rights in here. You're not going to talk to anyone. You don't talk to anyone, or words to that effect. Even if detainees are permitted phone access, defendants
thank you so much, Omega Star.
Possible for them to contact counsel. Most detainees do not have their attorney's phone number memorized. Detainees cannot check their phones for their attorney's contact information because officers generally take their cell phones away. Detainees must rely on counsel to get in touch with them, but, as set forth below, attorneys are blocked from reaching their clients both in person and by telephone. If detainees are somehow able to pass information along to attorneys by telephone, it is only by circumventing Broadview's policies through luck, happenstance, and use of occasionally successful family calls, which takes place on a monitored and recorded lines in front of officers to relay messages and information. Because of defendants' policies and practices, detainees are unable to initiate confidential calls with attorneys, making it nearly impossible for their attorneys to directly assist them in obtaining legal relief.
Right, and again, that's the thing that has to be kept in mind, is that it's regardless of whatever they do, right? They're giving them absolutely no legal recourse whatsoever, which is in and of itself illegal. So, for them to, try to say we're actually in the right or whatever, again, this is why I was trying to establish intent in the introduction and throughout the first part. 2. Defendants deny attorneys access to their clients held at Broadview. Defendants also systematically deny attorneys access to their clients at Broadview in a variety of ways. defendants obfuscate where detainees are being held so that the attorneys cannot find their clients when they are at Broadview. And this goes back to that what I was saying with that other report that we've gone over on stream, where it was very clear that they were using the fact that that they were obfuscating where people were, right, in order to try to get people to sign away their rights, etc. And so, again, this is why it's important to recognize that every time that a person has been deported and they were never given the chance to speak with their lawyers to seek legal redress or relief, that completely goes towards showcasing their intent, right? So, the ICE Online Detainee Locator, the locator from now on, is supposed to identify the location of individuals in ICE custody. It is often inaccurate or missing information in the following ways. The detainee's name does not appear in the locator. The locator provides the wrong location of a detainee. Locator said Clay County, but client was sent to Campbell County. Or 3, the locator says only that the detainee is in general ICE custody and to contact ICE for more information. Under defendant's authority, ICE has removed information from its Attorney Information and Resources webpage concerning communicating with a client or prospective client, legal resources available to immigrants in ICE custody, and legal resources available to non-detained immigrants. The sections removed included information on, among other things, legal visits, privacy and confidentiality, scheduling unmonitored calls, the detainee telephone system (DTS), free call platform to contact legal service providers, consular officials, and various governmental agencies and non-governmental organizations, accommodations for disabled detainees, legal access related to detention standards, and pro bono legal service providers, know your rights materials, and immigration court help desk for pro se petitioners, which pro se is when they are their own defense, right? When they advocate for themselves instead of having an attorney. That's all that means.
And this was removed all from the fucking website, the information and resources website. Great help. Great fucking help. Detainees are not always processed the day they arrive at Broadview. Some individuals are processed days later. Sometimes officers input the wrong name, further limiting attorneys' abilities to locate their clients. The phone line for the Chicago field office is unattended, and no one answers or returns phone calls. When attorneys call the Broadview facility directly, no one answers, the line disconnects without an option to leave a message. Yeah, so they can't even leave a message even if they wanted to.
Right.
Even when attorneys know or suspect their client is at Broadview, defendants prevent them from contacting their client. When attorneys email the facility directly, or ICE and other ICE thing, they often do not receive a response. If they do, it is generally not until after their client has been transferred out of Broadview, so they can't contact them anymore. Broadview. Some federal officers have lied to attorneys about their clients being at Broadview, or have refused to say where they are being held, and so further making it so you can't. So it's either they only respond after they're out of Broadview, or they just lie. They just lie.
Right. Defendants have instituted a wholesale prohibition of in-person legal visits, which is what I was referring to earlier. That again, even if they could contact their lawyers, and even if the lawyers do know that they are in Broadview, they won't let them into Broadview, even though by the law they have to allow them to see their attorneys. And also, again, they keep saying that they're listening into the conversations, that they're right, like. Again, that they have to be given confidentiality because they could potentially say stuff that then they will use against them, right, to incriminate them in other ways, or to try to find other people, etc. And so the fact that they don't even let their attorneys be there in person when, they have to be there, they have to be given, again, every single person in the United States is whomever is inside the United States is protected by the Constitution. So it doesn't matter what their status is or anything like that. They're still they still have all the rights as everybody else. So they either do so directly or through other federal agencies, and the Illinois State Police agents who have been patrolling around the facility. When attorneys speak to ICE officers or to other federal agents or ISP officers, the officers explicitly tell them that they cannot contact their clients at Broadview and refuse them access. Multiple attorneys have described attempting to visit clients and being denied entry, sometimes repeatedly, until their clients are transferred away from the facility. Because defendants maintain a blanket ban on legal visits at Broadview, it is nearly impossible for attorneys and clients to share documents. As a result, attorneys cannot obtain clients' approval of legal proceedings or their signature on important documents. And again, this is really important to keep in mind. When it comes to legal forms, when it comes to all of these things, they require you to sign things, they require you sometimes with a notary, right? Like there's so many things you have to do in order for legal proceedings. So the fact that they're not even allowing them to have the most basic aspects of legal protection, again, goes even more towards, right, their intent.
Yeah. Defendants deny the putative class access to counsel intentionally in order to deprive them of legal remedies and access to courts. Defendants have intentionally turned Broadview into a black hole where people go missing for days and are forced to sign voluntary departure forms while their attorneys are denied access to their clients. Yeah, literally, okay. I thought this would come up here. Without access to legal counsel, detainees have no opportunity to consult an attorney about their rights, pursue immigration relief, or file a habeas action to contest their placement or being sent out of the country.
And again, that's important because...
Yeah.
My bad. I was just going to say, like, if they cannot even get, like, a habeas corpus proceeding started, right, to actually find out whether or not they even should be in detention, right, shows that, again, they are, doing things completely illegally.
Defendants have denied detainees access to counsel, even though Broadview has the facilities and capabilities to allow legal access. The facility maintains attorney-client visit rooms in which people can meet with or call their attorneys confidentially. Most individuals are arrested with their cell phones, which can be given back to them on a limited basis to facilitate confidential, unmonitored calls with counsel.
Okay, Broadview is...
So it's not just that. I just wanted to say, part of going to the intent is, it's not just like they don't have the necessary facilities or anything they do, or like a way to do this. They do. They have multiple ways. They have phones themselves where they apparently can do this. They have rooms where they can house the attorneys and whoever the clients to do it. And they also, even if they didn't have phones, the people in there often have their own phones.
Right, and again, like the fact that they don't want to let them have any confidentiality, right? It also reflects in in their conditions, right? Like where they are always, right? It's like literally, panopticon, right? It's like, and everybody can see each other as well. It's like,
Yep. Earlier, for people who weren't here in the previous stream, it was talked about how because people can see into the men's and women's side, when women are using the restroom, they would often intentionally crowd around each other and like block the view.
Right.
That was what it was talked about.
Right, and again, like these places are so cramped. So if people have not, were not here for the first reading of this legal complaint, like these places are so crowded. There are hundreds of people in a room that's 30 square feet.
Yeah.
And not only that, but they only have one restroom, and often people will have to actually sleep next to the toilet. I mean, right? And it's,
Yep.
it's there is no privacy here, no privacy afforded whatsoever.
And also, going on from that, the toilets are often clogged and non-functional, and if the toilets are clogged or non-functional, the people there, if they're clogged, will sometimes have to literally unplug it themselves, and
Yes.
they are given no access to any form of sanitation
Not at all.
or anything.
After they do that, they literally they don't let them wash their hands, they don't let them take a shower, they don't even let them get medical attention. So again, this is why these places are so dangerous. So when it says here, Broadview is located right outside Chicago, making it easy for lawyers to visit, there is a robust immigration bar in Chicago, and attorneys are willing and able to provide legal services for individuals detained at Broadview. And again, I know it's going to say it in a little bit because I'm reading a little bit forward, but again, these are pro bono, right? These are lawyers paid for by the families, right? If they don't want someone that's pro bono, they want to see their clients, right? They are literally not allowing people to do their jobs. So for instance, the Chicago Bar Foundation, working with the National Immigrant Justice Center and the ACLU of Illinois, coordinates the Immigrant Habeas Project of Illinois, which recruits and trains pro bono attorneys to deliver critical relief to detainees by filing federal habeas petitions and temporary restraining orders. The habeas project attorneys are able to provide representation for detainees in Broadview. So again, they are willing to submit, right, federal habeas petitions, so to find out whether they should even be in such a place, right? Just on the principle of it, if they should even be detained, and they are not allowed to even do that, right? They are the judge, jury, and executioner, and defendants intentionally impede detainees' access to counsel and attorney access to prevent immigrants from obtaining legal relief. On information and belief, defendants do this to minimize legal interference and speedily send immigrants out of the United States, irrespective of their legal rights.
Yeah. Like it said, sometimes, it should also be noted, one of the things about what this facility specifically was supposed to be used for that was brought up, this wasn't supposed to be a place where they could be immediately moved to the dropped off at the border. This is not one of those places. This actually isn't really supposed to be I don't know what the technical term would be, but it isn't supposed to be like an actual detention center. This is supposed to be a holding place, and for people to be held for 12 hours, but usually less, and then moved on to another facility.
Right, essentially,
but now,
this is like a way stop, more or less.
Yeah. There wasn't supposed to be more than probably 20 or 30 people. And that might even be pushing it. It was supposed to be really small.
Right.
And now people are being put here, and as with that one case, apparently dropped off literally directly at the border. Yeah, that's like the facility in Portland. The one in Chicago is actually massive and grew recently, the size of Costco. Really, I didn't know that. Very interesting.
That's horrifying. But yeah, another thing too is, again, they are literally they cannot claim that, they're doing everything above board and legally. And this is what this complaint keeps showing, is that their intent is to literally push as many people out of the country as possible. And so when you hear people complaining, saying, Trump isn't doing this enough, right? It's imagine most of these people, if not all of them, shouldn't even be here, shouldn't even be at Broadview, right? Let alone any other detention facility. So, yeah.
Defendants' officers have a policy and practice of threatening and coercing detainees to sign forms consenting to their being sent out of the country without appearing before an immigration judge and otherwise waiving their legal rights. The objective of this policy and practice is to expel as many detainees out of the country as quickly as possible. And like, just like all this stuff compounds. It's not just that they're like giving these forms to these people held here, and just trying to get them to do it. They're getting them to do it, and they're also like torturing them, like genuinely torturing them, and not having them like any access to counsel or anything, or anyone to like help them and like make sure they can fully understand what's going on.
Right, and
It's
again,
like,
that's another important thing to also note too is, again, they will only speak to them in English a lot of times, right? Like, they don't even have people that speak Spanish or other languages. Like, they don't even provide translation services. So a lot of times they literally don't know what they're signing.
yeah. On information and belief, in many instances, the document the defendants are coercing and threatening detainees to sign is ICE Form I-210, entitled Voluntary Departure and Verification of Departure. Defendants' officers fill out the form to specify that the individual is granted voluntary departure by DHS and is required to depart the United States under safeguard, i.e., while in custody.
Defendants use the voluntary departure form, and again, this is what they were celebrating. They were saying, oh, 2 million people, right? Think about that, 2 million people. Again, if we are to believe the numbers, right? When I've talked about the history of mass expulsions of Mexicans, particularly from the United States, the first one, the one that happened in the 1930s, or at least the one that's known as the Decade of Betrayal, was more or less around 2 million people. So it's like they've already surpassed that, right? Now it's millions of people, right, that are being coerced into leaving the United States. And they say, well, it's all fine and good because they signed this form that says that they waive all of their rights and that actually they will self-deport, right? So, completed in this manner to send detainees out of the United States without placing them in formal removal proceedings before an immigration judge. So again, when you sign this document, you waive all... Oh, is it distracting? I can shut it off, no worries. I wasn't sure how well it could be heard, so thank you for letting me know. So what in essence this means is that, again, they will say, oh, well, they're voluntarily deporting. But again, they've made the conditions so horrible, torturous, as Envy was sort of hello, Arvin. And so what you see is then that these people are being, like these numbers, again, if it is 2 million, again, that is a horrifying number. Again, when you have millions of people that have been, forcefully expelled, and just because they don't have to go through proceedings, therefore that somehow makes it okay. That does not make it okay, right? So that's what I really want to stress here. Like, this means that they are essentially saying, I waive my right to even show up to a judge, right? Who then may still have them removed, but they're not even allowed that basic right. So without any hearing in immigration court or any other court, and without any opportunity for the individual to contest the removal or to seek relief from removal through immigration proceedings, appeals, petitions for review to federal court or otherwise. When an immigrant agrees to voluntary departure without being placed in formal removal proceedings, they have no opportunity to challenge the action or seek relief in an immigration court or any court of law. Signing such paperwork relinquishes an individual's right to due process afforded by such procedures. So again, I really want to stress this. When they're getting people to sign these forms and they don't know what they say, they haven't consulted with their lawyer, they are being told that if they don't sign it, that they won't then they won't ever get to see their children, etc., etc. We have to recognize that these are coercive tactics. I mean, I would even go, yeah, I could go on and give more, adjectives, but it's a way to create conditions that bring about mental and physical harm to these people. And again, by having them sign this paperwork without them knowing what it says, without them having consulted their lawyers and waiving all of their rights, again, they literally lose the chance for any legal recourse. Any, ever. Texas sucks, even its own prison complex, right? This is America. No, it's sad to say, but it's true.
Also, Brooks sent a thing of it. Sent a thing of the facility. Oh my god. There we go. Am I looking in the right direction, Brooks? Am I looking in the right direction? If you're still here. There's two buildings. It's behind and in front. Behind it is the offices. Yeah. So is this it? Is this the building? That is the warehouse. Yeah, it looks fucking. You can go in. You can go inside. Yeah. But yeah, that's the facility apparently.
Yeah, I don't know if you could send it over to me because I can't see it.
Yeah. Let me send you the link as well. It is the brown building is apparently the warehouse.
Okay. Okay, so right there is the warehouse right there. So that's horrifying.
Yeah, I'm not sure how all of it works. I don't. It's. I was having really a hard time navigating the Google Street View for some reason.
Right. Yeah. Okay, so with that gone now, so you can see it is legitimately a warehouse, right? So.
Yeah. There is no mechanism in immigration court to challenge or obtain review of whether an individual knowingly or voluntarily signed ICE Form I-210 granting voluntary departure by DHS prior to the initiations of removal proceedings. Yeah, so literally they could have been lied to about what it was. It could have been given to them. If they don't speak English, it could have just been given to them in a language they didn't understand, and they were just signed it, and so there's literally just no way.
Right.
On information and belief. What were you gonna say?
Oh no, I was just gonna say, that just should help people understand the idea. Like, imagine you are in a country and you don't speak the language, and people are angrily telling you must sign this form, and you don't know what it says, right? It's like, with everything that's going on, with all the horrors that you're being put through, people will sign that form because they would rather leave that facility than be there with all these horrors going on in them, right? So. But yeah.
On information and belief as part of defendants' policy and practice of using coercions and threats to procure signatures on forms and waive rights, defendants are seeking to compel detainees to sign other documents to effectuate the removal, to waive their rights under U.S. immigration law and the Constitution. As part of defendants' policy and practice of procuring signatures and waivers of rights that are knowing and voluntary, defendants are employing a number of coercive and threatening tactics. Officers often do not allow detainees to read forms before signing. So even if they do speak English, they're not even allowed to read the forms. You get fucking yelled at if you just want to read.
Right.
And then and you can read the next part, but Jemp says 8 USC SS 1252 basically says courts have no jurisdiction to adjudicate removal proceedings except for habeas corpus. I don't know. I don't know how law works. So
Yeah, no, but like, right, and so that's the reason why, like, again, it's saying like even if they did want to show up, start immigration proceedings, whether in again that's why it's talking about different courts, right? Like they can't just get it. And so going with what Jem said, yeah, it's like whether or not they should even be detained, which is the habeas proceedings, is what those courts are supposed to. The courts that he's mentioning are supposed to determine. But they're not even being allowed. Did you stop at 149 or did you go to 150? I'll read it.
I stopped at I read. Yeah, I didn't read 150 yet.
Okay.
So you can read it.
Officers typically present forms to detainees in English, despite the fact that many immigration detainees do not speak or understand English. Officers generally do not provide a translated version or orally translate forms that the detainees are forced to sign. Officers do not fully or accurately explain the consequences of signing forms. So again, this is more deceptive, coercive tactics to get people to sign away their rights. And this is, again, what is important to keep in mind. Officers have falsely translated the content. So they will, again, they keep being deceptive. They keep lying. Falsely translated the contents of the document that a detainee is being asked to sign. Officers have used a variety of verbal threats, which again, you cannot do, that is illegal, in order to coerce detainees to signing forms, including threatening a detainee that they will remain in the horrific conditions inside Broadview until they sign. So going back again, they are using the horrific conditions that they have created in Broadview by having these cramped rooms, by having all of these things, right, be part of, right, one of the leverage, part of the leverage, right, that they will use against people in order to coerce them to sign. So not only just verbal threats, not only, I mean, and again, that's only from what we've read so far, but again, they know that the conditions in Broadview are horrific, right? Like by using that as a threat, they show, again, another case for intent. Hello, BKK. How are you? Threatening that things will go badly for the detainee if they do not sign. Threatening that the detainee will remain incarcerated unless they sign. Threatening a detainee with physical abuse if they do not sign. And issuing angry verbal insults in response to a detainee's reluctance to sign. So again, even if I need to think about it, whatever, they don't want you to think about it. They want you to sign it so that way they can send you out of the country. That is all they care about, is expelling people. Officers have falsely conveyed to detainees that they have no rights within Broadview, which again is completely untrue. They have all of the constitutional rights, as well as any other specific rights that are vis-a-vis, right, their detention, etc. Oh, I'm doing okay, BCAT. I'm doing very well. I hope you are doing okay. Officers have continued to insist that a detainee must sign a document even when the individual says they do not want to sign, or that their lawyer has advised them not to sign anything. So again, when it's coming to this form, well, you have to sign this form regardless whether you're going to stay here or not. Again, they will do any type of these deceptive tactics in order to make it so that they do sign, and then they can do pretty much whatever they want with them. And that is, yeah, this whole administration feels like the definition of under duress. No, yeah, you're totally right. Like, that's pretty much everything that's happening.
Also, Brooks gave me a thing from when he was at this facility, at the Broadview facility, in, I think you said October? Let me look back. And I can play that. Let's see. Yeah, Ken and I went out there in October. So this is around the time when the reports are being done, and let me open it, and also let me. Can I just send you the? Can I just send you the what's it called? Probably not. It's probably too big. Because Discord hates everything. Yeah, no, I can't. Cringe. I don't know, Brooks, if you're if you're okay with me DMing the link to Shakespeare, but just say something in chat if you are. Otherwise, you might just want to pull up my stream so that your people can see.
Okay.
I'm just waiting for Brooks, okay,
so
just to make sure, because I don't know if it's anything private.
yeah, that's fine. Let's see here. Okay, I am looking at your stream now.
All right. Okay. Well, then I'll just that's fine. I'll just pull it up anyway. Okay, that works. Go. There we go. And I should just be able to open it in my browser if it'll let me click on it. Right. Right. Just this once. Oh, wrong thing. I don't think there's any actual audio, but I only listened to it muted, so I'm not actually sure. There's just a bunch of seemed like just like a bunch of background noise.
And look at all these flowers placed here. I mean, some of them are even like the flowers of Dia de los Muertos. Like it's.
Yeah.
Also, I'm muted, so I know that you said you muted, so I just want to make sure people understand why it's quiet, because it's just background noise. So.
Yeah, I'll mute it myself as well, because it does in the background. I just didn't know. Didn't know if there's any talking. Just didn't know if there's any talking.
I mean, so what I am presuming is that Brooks is walking around the perimeter. Is that what is happening?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Yeah, Brooks is walking around the perimeter.
Just to give you the sense of scale as well.
Yeah.
Okay.
Then we were at 154, right? We didn't read that one yet.
Right.
Officers have told detainees that they are required to sign forms and that there is no need or right to speak with a lawyer. Yeah, so they're told that literally like earlier, you have no rights. You have none. No rights for you. Officers have denied all access to legal advice or counsel to people who are being compelled to sign forms. They have rebuffed and reacted angrily to requests from detainees to consult with a lawyer before signing. It's just insane. On information and belief, defendants intentionally subject detainees to degrading and inhumane conditions in Broadview and in other detention facilities in order to encourage immigrants to sign forms, waive rights, and agree to leave the country. As a result of defendants' policies and practices, detained individuals are prejudiced in court and face serious consequences. And you can read from here.
Yeah. Attorney Kimberly Weiss's client had a strong case as a 56-year-old widower, single parent, and sole caretaker for 4 children who are all U.S. citizens. He entered legally and had a work permit as a fully certified union journeyman roofer. Unbeknownst to him, at the time he signed the voluntary departure, his lawyer had already secured a court date for a bond hearing the next day, but by that afternoon, he was on the other side of the border. His children, who were already grieving the loss of their mother from earlier this year, now must process the sudden loss of their father. That's just so... That's horrible. I mean, like, again, like, they're pressuring people so much to the point where, and they're not allowing them to contact their attorneys precisely for this, right? So then that way, even if their lawyer is able to succeed in getting them a bond hearing, it doesn't matter because they've signed away their rights. This is horrifying. B, defendant's refusal to allow attorney Laura Smith to communicate with her clients while they were detained at Broadview has prevented her from obtaining information critical to their removal proceedings, bond hearings, and habeas petitions. Defendant's refusal to allow her to even obtain her client's signatures has prevented her from obtaining their immigration records and impacted the ability to file on her client's behalf. So again, because there are so many legal documents that you have to sign in person, sometimes even with a notary present, etc., it's like that limits what their attorneys can even do in their stead, right? What they can even do. So again, like, that's another thing to keep in mind, is that it's also that by not allowing them, access to their clients, that also limits what the lawyers can do on their own, right? So it's not like the lawyers can do everything just with the phone call, right? Sometimes it does require signatures and such. So,
yeah. Well, one of Smith's clients was detained at Broadview. Smith filed her Form G-28, Notice of Entry of Appearance as Attorney, electronically with ICE, was still denied access to him. ICE then transferred him to a detention facility in Texas. There, 1 hour before he was deported, he was allowed to make one phone call with an ICE officer listening in. He called Smith. Smith began to inform him of his eligibility for immigration relief, but the officer cut her off. Her client was deported after this brief phone call. Immediately upon his return to Mexico, he was kidnapped and disappeared. That's so sad. All of this is really sad.
yeah, I mean, it is. Like, again, this is why the people left Mexico. This is why people leave Mexico, because they want to live somewhere better. And a lot of this stuff was caused by the United States. I mean, we didn't have a almost 70-year dictatorship for no reason. Let alone this. Like, imagine, like, the day that you arrived, once you've been deported, and then you're kidnapped and disappeared. Who knows? God only knows where you that might be. And again, this just goes more to the fact that, again, like, with my reading tomorrow, right, on drug cartels do not exist, it's like, this is what makes the fact that there are these human trafficking organizations, that they can only exist because of the state, right? They can only exist because the United States does collude. It literally allows them to exist because it wants them to exist. And again, we don't know. We just don't know where he is at anymore. And I wanted to know if you could check. This is deeply disturbing. I know, like, again, like, so many of us that have had to go back to Mexico, it's been something that, or wherever it might be, I'm just going to use my own, it's not something that we necessarily wanted to do, right? Like, we had lives, we had plans, we had all these other things, and all of that had to be interrupted, because once you start seeing entire families saying, we're going to leave in a week or two, it really affects you a lot. Like, I wish people would understand, it really is very hard to deal with things like that. It is not easy whatsoever to hear people and then saying to you, you need to leave as well, and you feel like, oh my gosh, so much anxiety every single day. It's just,
Also, Gemt, if you want to send any of that stuff over, I don't know if Shakespeare or either of us have it, but you can send it to either. You can send it to both of us, and yeah, and in a sec we'll in a sec we'll check it out. Whatever those documents are, whatever the documents you're talking about. I think Jimp said he has stuff related to this. Yeah, that's what it seems like. And so yeah, send whatever you can send whatever you have to both of us or just one of us, and we'll send it over to the other. Either way doesn't matter, but yeah, that is totally fine.
I was gonna ask if you could check what is the current number of total people deported as of today, or if they have a counter, like how many people they report have self-deported, or those that have been forcefully removed. I don't know if you could look that up really quickly, just so that way we could also have a sense of this scale as well. If you can, of course.
Let's see. Oh my god, fucking The Guardian. Let's see if I can find something.
So hello Lefty, it's good to see you. I know it's so hard to describe to people what it is like when even something as simple as going to the grocery store fills you with terror. Because they don't care if you were born here, or if you were born in Mexico, or you were born in the United States. They don't care about that. Again, this is like this person right here. One of the client here, he was there legally. He had a work visa.
According to this, the administration has arrested more than 328,000 and deported nearly 327,000. So fucking lot of people.
Thank you, Planet. Thank you.
And
pardon.
Okay. So I was wondering whether or not these were the people detained for this month, and this included new detainees. But I assume with these numbers that yeah, because these are just the detention numbers, and it seems to be going up. Just continue almost continuously going up.
Okay.
So yeah. It's
I also wanted to ask if it lists how many people are said to have self-deported, if that number is available. Because again, I've heard 2 million, but I don't know if that number is accurate, and I don't want to keep repeating it in case it isn't. So, but it's a horrifying number.
Self-deportation stats. Yes. Let's see. Where the fuck is this AI overview getting this information from?
Not AI.
I really hate the AI overviews because it says things and I don't know if they're real.
I know.
Okay. According to this, which is from the Homeland Security, so
yeah.
So they the numbers are still really high, even if they are like overinflating somehow, or it only gets worse if they're not saying as much. 1.9 million people have quote unquote voluntarily self-deported.
So it is over 2 million then. It is over 2 million people.
Yeah.
That have had to leave the United States. Either they were coerced out by being detained, or had the conditions of life made so impossible that they had no other choice but to leave. And Planet is saying That's why recently I'm starting to think you really can't trick a bigot into accepting people. Specifically referring to the people who go back to economics for why it's good to have immigrants or give rights to women or be accepting in general. Right, like it always has to be an incentive, right? That's how you convince people, only through incentives, right? Like, what can they get out of it? No, I get what you mean. And I'll finish reading this. Smith was also able to obtain a teenage client's signature while he was at Broadview. So again, a minor. He was transferred to Indiana and then Texas. The Texas Detention Center refused to transmit any legal paperwork or allow Smith to meet with her client virtually. They told Smith, who was based in Chicago, that she had to travel to Texas to obtain her client's signature. Attorney David Mejia's client was transferred out of Broadview and out of state before Mejia was able to speak with him. As a result, Mejia's client was irreparably harmed because Mejia was prevented from demanding that the proceeding for his clients take place at the Chicago field office. Because of their policies and practices denying access to counsel, defendants have deprived immigrants of the ability to challenge their deportation, removal, or transfer, resulting in unreviewable and irreversible consequences.
I don't know, Shakespeare, if you wanted to take a break for a second, if you wanted to stop for today. But,
No.
Okay.
We have to.
I just wanted to make sure you're okay because I understand this is a lot. It is. I have the last time and then the stream before that, I like literally I was quietly crying to myself on stream about this stuff because I have a really bad time expressing myself, and so I probably sound kind of happy, but I just do that when I'm nervous.
Yeah, no, I'm fine. It's just, it's just thinking about like people I know that have also gone through this, and
yeah,
but yeah, no, I'm fine. I can keep going.
No. I just wanted to make sure because this is obviously this is like a lot and a really serious thing. Like we just the numbers put it all into perspective. 2 million people have been, in air quotes, voluntarily deported. And yeah, it's horrible.
Yeah, if you want to start at D, and then we can just keep moving on from there.
The conditions at Broadview violate even defendants' own standards and policies. By denying detainees access to counsel and keeping them in deplorable conditions, defendants intentionally and systematically violate their own standards and policies governing both detention centers and holding centers. 1. Defendants' policies governing detention conditions. ICE's Performance-Based National Detention Standards, PBNDS, promulgated and adopted by ICE, set minimum standards for the operations and conditions of facilities detaining immigrants and apply to all ICE-operated facilities. ICE detention facilities that hold detainees overnight, like Broadview, have more stringent requirements for conditions of confinement than short-term processing facilities. Yeah, so, and that's what this was. A short-term processing facility.
Right.
PBNDS. Sorry, I didn't know if you to say some more.
Oh no, I was just saying, yeah, that it's again, I think the average was 5 hours, and then it was raised to 12
Yeah,
hours, but now it's weeks,
It
essentially
was
months of a time.
Yeah, in the beginning, the recommended amount, the max amount was 12 hours, but the median, I think, I forget if it was the median or the average. I think it was the median was 5 hours. So usually people stayed for 5 hours, and that was tended to be the case. Um, and like there had to be like big exceptions for them to be held here there longer. It was and then and then it just kept increasing and increasing. The PBNDS required that each detainee, upon admission to a facility, be given an opportunity to shower and issued clean clothing, bedding towels, and personal hygiene items. The bedding must include, at minimum, one mattress, one blanket, one pillow, 2 sheets, and 1 pillowcase. Each detainee must be provided with soap, a comb, toothpaste, a toothbrush, shampoo, and lotion. ICE must provide 1 toilet for every 12 male detainees, or 1 toilet for every 8 female detainees, 1 operable shower for every 12 detainees, and sinks with hot and cold running water 24 hours a day. Which we talked about the numbers going up into the hundreds of people being held up to it was like over 100, it said, I think, for some of this.
Yeah,
and like even and I think it said there was only max 2, maybe 3 toilets.
Yeah, and like I mean, at one point they said hundreds, so
yeah.
And again, it's so packed that people have to just stand, and there's no air conditioning or there's no ventilation, right? Like all of these things, it's absolute cruelty. So detainees must be provided with a reasonably private environment, which requires the detainees be able to shower, perform bodily functions, and change clothing without being viewed by staff of the opposite gender, except in exigent circumstances. But I want to highlight again is that no matter what they do, like whether they have to use the restroom or anything, this is why you've seen this solidarity, particularly they noted with the female detainees, where someone did have to use the restroom knowing that they would be full in view of not only the male guards but also the men on the other side of the hallway, because it's all open for everybody to see, that they would stand around her that was using the restroom. So again, they have no privacy. They don't want to give people privacy. Also, the PBNDS requires that medical and mental health screenings shall be conducted to identify requirements for medical care, special needs in housing, and to protect the health of others in the facility. And again, one thing that we noted earlier in this, when we were reading this, is that they don't have a medical facility. They don't have and do not allow, and more or less, to put it one way, for there to be medical care to be given to the detainees. And again, this is important because there are people that are there that are need particular medication. They don't let them get their medication. If they need to see a doctor, like it said about one person that they were bleeding from their face, and again, there are bloodborne pathogens. It could become infected, again, with how horrible these conditions are, become gangrenous. Who knows? And so the fact that they don't even screen so that to know what people's needs are really speaks to how horrifying this is, and again shows how much the health and the well-being of those incarcerated, of those being held, is not valued whatsoever. The PBNDS further require that detainees shall be able to request health services on a daily basis and shall receive timely follow-up. I did want to read this footnote since it seems to be one that gives a bit more information. Even for detentions under 12 hours, the PBNDS requires detainees in hold rooms be provided with basic personal hygiene items, e.g. water, disposable cups, soap, toilet paper, feminine hygiene items, diapers, and sanitary wipes as is appropriate. And they don't even do that. And there was another point too where there were women who and other people that people with uteruses that they had to go the whole time they were there with never getting any female hygiene products or feminine hygiene items, etc. But also even nursing mothers were not given anything. So if there's a baby there, they don't give the baby diapers, which is made clear in this footnote here. Detainees with prescription medication must be evaluated by a healthcare professional within 24 hours of arriving to the facility, and ICE is required to provide detainees with their prescription medication on a schedule and without interruption absent exigent circumstances.
Detainees are required to be served 3 meals every day, at least 2 of which shall be hot meals. Require drinking water to be made available to detainees. Detainees who have medical conditions shall be prescribed special diets as and for people who weren't here when they were talking about what meals they do get, it was usually like these sandwich things at first. And so I think those, I assume those would always be cold. They sounded like something that would be served like cold, or not even like cold, just like room temperature.
Right, and remember, like the sandwiches, they're supposed to be eaten in what, like so many hours? It's like, so they give them cold sandwiches.
Sometimes they would, yeah, and sometimes they would apparently be held like for over 2 weeks. I think is what was what it was. It was something insane compared to like how quickly they should have been eaten. It was like literally, like you said, within a couple of hours. Facilities must neither restrict the number of calls a detainee places to his/her legal representatives, nor limit the duration of such calls by rule or automatic cutoff unless necessary for security purposes or to maintain orderly and fair access to the telephones. Which, with the amount of people being held in such a facility like this, it like, where they're saying there's like not enough stuff even, it's like it makes you wonder. It makes you wonder how are you, even if they did do it, how would they be able to maintain fair access to telephones? Because like the telephones would seemingly, to me, like always be in use. Like they couldn't stop being in use with how many people they're attaining.
Right, and yeah, like if anything, it seems like one could maybe derive from this, but I'm not saying that I derive from this, but that having so many people allows them to say, oh, well, we have to cut it off because of these reasons. We can't give them the phone because there's so many of them.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So, yeah, and for detainee telephone calls regarding legal matters, each facility shall ensure privacy by providing a reasonable number of telephones on which detainees can make such calls without being overheard by staff or other detainees, which again, we've already heard that when there was one person that was trying to seek, was being told by their lawyer to not sign these forms, they interjected and immediately forced, hung up the phone for them. So, for incoming calls, facilities shall take and deliver telephone messages to detainees as promptly as possible. And another thing too is like this also allows for the agents. It streamlines their job as well, right? Like it like if they were to follow the rules, it would make it less, but that shows that that's not the point of what they're doing, right? They're not there to ensure, right, that all of these things happen in a correct way, but rather, using any excuse to skirt the law. Each facility must permit legal visitation 7 days a week, including holidays, for a minimum of 8 hours per day on regular business days, Monday through Friday, and a minimum of 4 hours per day on weekends and holidays. And that's something that at the Broadview facility, they could never see anybody. They would never allow people in. They're entitled to 8 hours during the week, and the weekends 4 and holidays 4. They don't get any, not even a single second. Facilities are also required to permit detainees to meet with prospective legal representatives during regular hours of legal visitation. These legal visits must be confidential and not subject to auditory supervision by officers, which is precisely what they are doing at the Broadview facility. They are listening in, they are hanging up the calls, they are trying to, not let them speak with legal counsel, not even get legal counsel if they can. Instead, they want to coerce them into signing the forms that sign their rights away.
Conditions at Broadview even violate defendants' policies for short-term detention under 12 hours. Even though defendants have instituted a hold room waiver policy and thus are keeping people at Broadview for much longer than 12 hours at a time, they are violating even their own less restrictive policies governing short-term detentions. DHS and ICE issued a directive 11087.2, Operations of ERO Holding Facilities, the Holding Facility Policy, on January 31st, 2014. The Holding Facility Policy reaffirmed the 12-hour limit on holding facilities absent exceptional circumstances, which has been in place for over 10 years. The Holding Facility Policy provides ICE ERO officers, including the officers who operate and staff Broadview, with policies and procedures for facilities that detain individuals for under 12 hours. Defendants routinely violate the holding facility policy despite regularly detaining people at Broadview for far longer than 12 hours. Yeah, so it's like, all of this goes to show, it's not like they're doing all this awful shit and it's technically allowed. They're doing all this awful shit and it's not allowed. It's not even by their own policies. Even under the things they say you should do, it's not allowed.
And again, like they said, right, that it's even their least restrictive policies are the ones that even they will skirt those, which is just under the holding facility policy, the executive associate director for ERO, currently defendant Marcos Charles, is responsible for ensuring.
Okay, you're fine. You cut out for me.
Oh, okay.
You cut out for me.
Is responsible for ensuring compliance with the provisions of this holding facility policy within ERO. Field office directors, here, defendant Olson, are responsible for ensuring that field office personnel follow the procedures in this holding facility policy for operating holding facilities. FODs are also responsible for A. Ensuring that detainees are properly screened so those with serious mental health disorders or conditions are expeditiously identified, and those who exhibit signs of acute mental distress are referred to mental health professionals pursuant to the applicable detention standards and policy. B. They shall ensure that before placing detainees together in a hold room, there is a consideration of whether a detainee may be at a high risk of being sexually abused or assaulted, and when appropriate, shall take the necessary steps to mitigate any such danger to the detainee. This screening shall include consideration of, inter alia, whether the individual has a mental, physical, or developmental disability, their age, build, and appearance, whether they are LGBTI or gender nonconforming, whether they have previously experienced sexual victimization, and their own concerns about their physical safety. FODs shall provide heightened protection, such as single housing, for detainees identified as being at risk for victimization.
ERO personnel are required to be sensitive to detainees. Sorry about that. Cultural and religious practices. And whenever possible, detainees' religious beliefs and practices shall be accommodated. Under the holding facility policy, ERO officers are responsible for inter alia, ensuring detainees are provided a meal at least every 6 hours. B. Ensuring that hold rooms are safe, clean, and equipped with restroom facilities. C. Ensuring that males and females are not detained in the same hold room unless they are a family unit. D. Ensuring that elderly detainees are not placed in hold rooms unless they have demonstrated or threatened violent behavior, have a history of criminal activity, or pose an escape risk. And E. Ensuring detainees with disabilities are provided an equal opportunity to access, participate in, and benefit from in-custody programs, services, and activities, and those with communication disabilities are provided with auxiliary aids and services as necessary to allow for effective communication, and those who are illiterate or with limited English proficiency provided with meaningful access to services. Which, from everything that has been described, is I don't think any of these will fucking have been followed, and the ones that we aren't technically sure of immediately that weren't followed, I have no faith that they actually did follow these.
Right.
But they have literally within this definitively violated most of this, like explicitly in this.
Right. And also, like, another thing, which is which they're not doing any of that. Right, exactly, Arvin. Another thing to keep in mind is, like, they mentioned, right, cultural and religious sensitivities, because, right, there are, like, I'm Jewish, and so, like, most Jewish people don't eat pork. But if they're, the only food they give you are ham sandwiches, what do? Right? Same thing if you're Muslim and you keep halal, right? Like, they're not, like, that's one thing that they're also not noting, because they're also trying to take away the actual variety of experiences that all of these people come from and flattening them into one punitive experience. And so that also takes away from their humanization, right? It dehumanizes them more so because, again, they're placed in positions where they could be not only harmed, but also are not able to even partake in what they are given, right? And let alone, like, for example, if they have gluten intolerance or something else, if they're only given one set of food, right? And it seems to be, from what we read in this report, that there is not exactly, like, variety in these foods, let alone whether they're still appropriate to be eaten or not. The holding facility policy further requires that ERO officers empty holding facilities upon the conclusion of daily operations in those field office locations operating on a daily schedule. Absent exceptional circumstances, no detainee should be housed in a holding facility for longer than 12 hours. B. Monitor detainees for any apparent indication of a mental or physical health condition or signs of hostility, self-harm, or harm to others that may require closer supervision or emergency medical care. Provide minors and pregnant women with regular access to meals, snacks, milk, and juice regardless of their time in custody. Provide detainees with access to drinking water in hold rooms at all times. Detain pregnant detain pregnant individuals in the least restrictive setting available, provided such a setting is consistent with the need to protect the well-being of the pregnant individual and others and separate them from other detainees whenever possible. F. Provide any detainee who has acute communication disability with auxiliary aids and services as necessary to allow for effective communication. G. Provide any detainee who is illiterate or has limited English proficiency and speaks a language in which written material has not been translated with in-person or telephonic or interpretation, including all ICE and facility-related information and communication. H. Permit detainees to shower where showers are available, perform bodily functions, and change clothing without being viewed by staff of the opposite gender except in exceptional and unusual circumstances or when incidental to routine cell checks. I. Announce their presence when entering an area where detainees of the opposite gender are likely to be showering, performing bodily functions, or changing clothing. J. Allow detainees to keep personal inhaled medication on their person and have access to other prescribed medication necessary. K. Maintain a detention log for every detainee brought into custody regardless of purpose, recording, inter alia, detainee's name, language spoken, and if the detainee is not proficient in English, known or reported disability, time in, mealtime, and time out. L. Respond immediately to observed or reported medical emergencies and contact local emergency medical services when a detainee is determined to need urgent medical care. And from what we've read in this brief so far, they are doing absolutely none of these things, to the point where, again, they won't allow emergency services to go there. They don't have any medical services on site. They don't even have access to drinking water, so many other things.
E. Court intervention is the only remedy sufficient to address the dire circumstances at Broadview in light of defendants' growing lack of transparency. In sharp deviation from historical practice, defendants have also implemented a policy denying members of Congress access to inspect Broadview. Elected senators and representatives have repeatedly tried to enter the facility as part of their congressionally mandated oversight authority and have been barred entrance. So even people in Congress, it's not just medical personnel, it's not just lawyers, it's not just all this stuff which they do also have a right to. It's people in Congress also aren't allowed into places to see the conditions.
And to just to highlight this as well, like Congress is literally has the oversight authority over these facilities.
Yeah. And even they aren't being allowed in here. On June 17th and 18th, 2025, U.S. House Representatives Jesus Shu Garcia, Delia Ramirez, Jonathan Jackson, and Danny Davis attempted to conduct congressional oversight visits to Broadview following reports of inhumane detention conditions, denial of access to counsel, but they were denied entrance by ICE. On June 18th, defendants adopted a new policy limiting congressional access to ICE facilities. Following the denial of the visit, Representatives Davis, Garcia, Jackson, Ramirez sent a public letter to defendants Nome and Leons detailing the denial of their access to Broadview, demanding that they be permitted to exercise their right of oversight over ICE facilities. The representatives did not respond, just ignoring the people who are supposed to be able to visit. Just like even more. On September 12th, 2025, Representatives Garcia, Ramirez, Jackson, and Davis sent defendants Nome and Leons a letter noting their concerns about the conditions at Broadview and including a list of questions about Broadview. They did not receive a response to their questions.
On September 6th...
Then if you want to...
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Also, with that one name, in case it comes up again, it's Chui.
Oh, okay.
On September 16th, 2025, Senator Richard J. Durbin and Representative Ramirez communicated to ICE that an Illinois delegation of congressional representatives, from here on out, the delegation, intended to conduct an oversight visit to Broadview on September 23rd, 2025. ICE refused to allow the visit. In lieu of the visit, ICE agreed to meet with the delegation on September 26th, 2025, but then postponed the meeting to an unconfirmed date in October, which is when this report comes out at the end of October, so just to keep that in mind. The meeting has not occurred. On September...
And to also keep in mind, this was published, I think, on the 29th of October. So, like, what are the last days of October? So the meeting hadn't happened, like really close to the end of October still. So it's been put back. We can assume by 2 months.
On September 26th, thank you for that, 2025, members of the delegation, including Senators Durbin and Duckworth, Representatives Ramirez, Jonathan L. Jackson, Robin Kelly, Jesus Chuy Garcia, Mike Quigley, Sean Caston, Raja Krishnamurthy, Jan Shakowski, Bradley Scott Schneider, Bill Foster, Nikki Bujinsky, Lauren Underwood, and Eric Sorensen sent a letter to then Chicago Field Officer Hott, Director Hott. I hope I'm pronouncing that one right. Underscoring their need to meet with ICE and requesting information about Operation Midway Blitz. Also, can I just note, like, the fact that they, like, the word blitz has a very storied history. I will say that. It's a very strange thing to use that term in mass deportation operation. I don't know if I'm the only one that kind of feels that resonance to other uses of the term blitz, but I've definitely been...
Look, Shakespeare, it's just an American football reference.
Right.
Obvious.
Has nothing to do with Kriegen. And Broadview to provide much needed transparency. The delegation was concerned about its inability. Right. Hello, Columbia Rican. I hope you're doing well. The delegation was concerned about its inability to gain access to Broadview because Operation Midway Blitz has been shrouded in secrecy, with little notice to state or local officials about the nature of the operations, the types of people targeted, where DHS was detaining people, which agencies were detailing officers to conduct immigration enforcement. So again, not even the people that literally have the oversight authority can even get the most basic information from this secret police force, right? Because it's operating to where even the people that have oversight over them are saying that they operate in secrecy.
Yeah.
Right.
It should also be noted, I also want to note something from the previous thing that might not be realized. It has also been explicitly stated by as like someone high up in the defendants, I forget exactly what they were, that they are profiling explicitly based on looks. So the people who are potentially signing voluntary forms to get deported potentially don't potentially are legally allowed to stay here.
Right.
And they are being forced out.
Right, like that man that he still had his work visa and had his 4 U.S. born children.
Yeah.
And still he got deported, even though he was legally here, right? And that's why when they try to use and this is me speaking as me editorializing here, that's why we do not use the language, right, of the perpetrators of these crimes, because nobody is illegal. There is no such thing as an illegal person. And so we have to really refrain with that. And that's something that I've spoken about before the last time we read this, but also on my own stream, right? Like, you don't use those terms, because then you're part of that normalizing of where people who are legally here still get seen as somehow being inherently illegal, right? And so, and like you said, that everything is based on the discretion of the individual officer, and so they do base things off completely just off of vibes. I mean, literally, they look at you, and if you look like you're quote unquote illegal, which so.
Who is Defendant Leon's? I forget exactly what they are, but they're the head of one of, I forget if it's DHS or ICE.
Gnome is head of DHS. I know that.
Okay.
So I think Leon's must be either CBP or ICE itself.
Acting Director, U.S. Immigration Customs Enforcement. Yeah. Okay. So ICE. ICE. Around 59.
No, Columbia Rican, I agree with you that. So this is what Columbia Rican says. But sadly, I've been thinking this forced deportation is a sort of ethnic cleansing. I've mentioned this several times in August. I was followed by ICE, and I'm Puerto Rican, born and raised in New York City. Well, slave was a legal term as well, right? And again, if people are legal, which is like they try to say is like, well, we're only going after people that are quote unquote illegal, right? It's like the thing is, and this is something that is described in like my own research, that like there is a caste that is created, and this is not my terminology, this is a scholar's whose name right now is escaping me, but that says that they have created a caste of people whom are by default seen as illegal, right? And that is racialized. But what Columbia Rican said about that, so ICE getting sued is well deserved. I really hope there's justice for us minorities. Does it make it acceptable to call someone a slave? No. Right, exactly. Slave was a legal term as well, right? And that doesn't make it right to call someone that term. And so, again, I'm only urging people because who am I to? But I believe, and in my own research and work, I don't use those terms, right? I will say that they use those terms, but I won't ever use them to describe the people themselves, because again, that is, part of the dehumanization process that's ongoing. But as Columbia Rican says, I do think that there has been wording in this document that if I were to compare it to, because again, ethnic cleansing isn't technically an international legal term, but from my own, knowledge of the subject, I would say that again, it's creating conditions of life that are there to create bodily and mental harm to the people. You have the transferring of children. You have all these things that if it were any other country like Russia or Iran or China, that you would never, you would see all of these op-eds and things like that in the New York Times. And again, that is something that I do think has to be considered as a way to think about what's going on, because it's been 1 year of, not even a full year of a Trump presidency, and already it's over 2 million people. The last time when they did it in the 30s, that whole decade, it was around the same number total. And that's from what we know of, right? It could be higher, etc. But this is from what they themselves are advertising, whether that's inflated or whether that's underreported. Either way, those are horrifying numbers, because it's millions of people that never deserved any of this. So I'm so sorry. Did you stop, or was I reading? I forget.
I think you were reading, if I remember correctly. Also, I wanted to say something about you talking about the use of the term illegal. It also, I think, um, helps support the idea, like what the ICE agents like literally said, that these people don't have rights. Well, they're illegal, so they must not. Well, they must not get them. You don't get them.
Right. So,
Only citizens get access to this. When it's like no, you talked about it explicitly. I think you said there is. It's weird. They get them. They aren't necessarily as strong as for U.S. citizens, but they still have the rights. It's I forget how you said it, but I think you said there was a bit of a difference, but it wasn't that they. You still get rights. You have rights
right. Like even
when
if
you're on U.S. soil.
right, like even if you are undocumented and you still have labor rights, right? These are not things that
Yeah.
they will tell you, but technically you do have labor rights that have been used, that have been brought to court, and again, so those are yeah. So I don't know if you want to continue on from the 185, I think, or
Yes.
excuse me, yeah.
Senator Durbin and Duckworth attempted to visit Broadview on October 10th, 2025. Defendants once again denied them entry. On October 13th, 2025, Representative Krishna Marathi tried to access the facility. Again, agents refused him access. On October 16th, Representative Garcia, Jamie Raskin, a ranking member of the House Judiciary Committee, and other committee members sent a letter to President Trump, Defendant Noem, Defendant Leons, highlighting the poor conditions at Broadview. The representatives did not receive a response. And so, this didn't just happen once, and this didn't just happen twice. This seems to have been multiple times. So far, I think we're up to 3 or 4 times, three or four separate occasions. Not counting the times where it was put off. By the way, where they were supposed to do things and it was put off, where they are not allowed, and they are also not given any responsives. It is not just congressional officials and attorneys who have been denied access to Broadview. For many years, faith leaders and members of the clergy, including Mercy Sisters, Joanne Persh, and Pat Murphy, provided pastoral care to individuals detained inside Broadview. Family members of individuals detained at Broadview were also historically permitted inside to meet with their loved ones. Now, no one is allowed inside Broadview. Faith leaders seeking to provide religious services are blocked from providing communion and spiritual support to the detainees, even from outside. Family members are no longer allowed inside. And with all this stuff going on, by the way, it should also be noted, people have died in their custody. And so if they have any funeral rights or any funeral services that need to be applied before they die or whatever, they are not going to. I assume they're probably not getting them.
Well, right.
With how people are being treated.
Right, and again, like this is something that is very important for example, like people that are Muslim, people that are Jewish. Like we have both of us, both traditions have this where you have to be buried right away, essentially, right? Like there's a whole thing, but if they're just warehousing bodies, then one could come to the conclusion, therefore, not saying it's true or not, but it could be concluded that therefore they must be also warehousing corpses as well. Because again, if they don't allow the Mercy Sisters or rabbis or imams or whatever it might be, again, for like going back like to the food stuff, right? If they're denying them even special consideration for food traditions, right, and restrictions, and not even allowing the clergy there, I mean, I can imagine that people who are people feel even more so isolated because it's very difficult if you don't have someone there to try to give you consolation or advice or something, right? Like, whether that's putting on tefillin or whether that's, praying, etc. It further goes to isolate and dehumanize the people that are there, so that they feel even more inclined, possibly, one might say, to sign those documents to get out of that situation. So,
yeah.
Black.
And for the final thing before the class action.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, did you want to read it?
No, you can go ahead.
Broadview is a black hole, and federal officials are acting with impunity inside its walls. The only way to obtain relief for the hundreds of immigrants being detained at Broadview is for the court to remedy the defendant's constitutional violations through the injunctive and declaratory action requested below on a class-wide basis.
Okay.
It should also be noted, I think at the beginning of this, it also said that it also noted that this stuff isn't just common to Broadview. Some of this stuff it is also, I believe it said, talked about how like even other facilities this has happened. This is at the very most been alleged at. Yeah, we can say.
Right. So the class action allegations. Plaintiffs bring this complaint as a class action pursuant to federal revised statutes 23A and 23B1 and 23B2, which are the subsections of them. Plaintiffs seek to represent a class defined as, quote, all immigration detainees who are detained and those who will be detained in the future at the Broadview ICE facility at 1930 Beach Street, Broadview, Illinois. So that is, when they say a class action lawsuit, that is the classification, right, of the people that are going before the court asking for injunctive relief, etc. So the putative class consists of people detained and awaiting release, removal, or transfer to a detention facility, which constitutes an inherently transitory population. So in other words, this facility is meant to be like a way station, right? It's meant to be something temporary before they go to a long-term facility. In this case, however, because of the fact that they are both in a building that's supposed to only house them for 5 hours to 12 hours, but they're always sort of expecting to be taken somewhere else, that means that they can never feel settled wherever they are. And that's also part of the anxiety and other things that can cause people to feel, right, like they need to sign documents assigning away their rights, right? Because, again, there's no certainty, right? Like the wait times have just gotten longer and longer and longer and longer. And, again, the conditions are so horrible that even if they are awaiting release, and this goes back to actually the other article you read, right, about the ones in Palma.
Is it? Yeah, I think it was New Mexico.
Yeah, I think it was New Mexico, and like there were like people that got visas that got, right, like the actual paperwork to be let out, and they still wouldn't let them out. So that's another thing to keep in mind. So while there is uncertainty as to how long any one plaintiff will remain at Broadview, there will be a constant class of detainees suffering the constitutional and legal violations alleged in this complaint as long as Broadview remains in operation in its current state. And I also want to just quickly state, it's important that they say future, right? Because it is so that if injunctive relief is placed, is actually, dispensed, one might say, that also means that that not only just the people that are currently confined there are the only ones that have that relief. This is forward-looking, so it's looking and making sure that nobody else has to suffer these things, which I think is, shows on the behalf of the many plaintiffs, right, a huge amount of solidarity that they would never want this to happen to anyone else. So I think that's important to highlight as well.
And also very good. Also very good, which means that there won't be need for something new like this in the future for people to be provided with. Plaintiffs are simultaneously seeking emergency discovery of information relating to the opaque Broadview facility, and if discovery or further investigation reveals that the putative class should be expanded or otherwise modified, the named plaintiffs reserve their right to amend the class definition, those subclasses, as necessary. Defendants track those currently in the Broadview facility, all of whom are easily identifiable for purposes of ascertaining the applicable class. The proposed class satisfied the requirements of Federal R Civil P23A1 because the class is so numerous that joinder of all members is impractical. I assume joinder would be a joining of multiple cases, instead of. I assume there's some legal thing here.
Right, and another thing too is because there are so many people that it would be impractical for them to go through this person alleges is also what they're saying too. Like they're not going to go down the list and put all the allegations each and every person said. So that's another thing too, yeah.
Upon information and belief at any given time, there are up to 200 or more people detained at Broadview at one time. 200 or more. So yes, when it talked about in the hundreds, in one room, it very much could have been like in the hundreds, literally in the hundreds.
Right, and again, this is a 30 by 30 size room, and those are the large rooms.
Yeah.
So, again, just to quickly add on to this, remember that for every 12 men and for every 8 women, there's supposed to be one bathroom. That is not the case for any of these rooms. There are 2 bathrooms, usually, from what we read before.
2, and even being generous, 3. Which the last time I checked, 3 does not divide. Does not divide into 100 divided by 3 does not equal 12. It actually produces a number larger than 12. So last time I checked. So either way, it's fucked. Joinder is impractical because the putative class members are detained. Many do not speak English well or at all, and most are unable to initiate individual litigation because they lack sufficient resources, financial or otherwise. Furthermore, the population for detained individuals at Broadview changes on a daily basis, as detailed above. The putative class members' access to legal representation and services is obstructed by lack of phone calls and denial of attorney access to the facility. The proposed class meets the requirement of FedR Civ P23A2. There are several common questions of law and fact. The class members have all been denied the ability to have confidential conversations and visit with counsel. They have all been detained in overcrowded cells. They have all been denied beds and bedding material and been forced to sleep on the concrete floor, on plastic chairs, or sitting up. They have all been denied sufficient food and water. They have all been denied the ability to bathe. They have all been denied access to proper medical care, and they have all been denied basic hygiene products. As a result, common question of law and fact include, but are not limited to, the following.
And again,
and I don't know if you wanted to continue.
Yeah, I'll read that. I'll read the A and the letters. But one thing to keep again, and the reason why I want to keep going back to this is, again, if people are being in overcrowded cells, and they don't care if people are disabled, if people are gender non-conforming, non-binary, etc., or trans, among other things. This also means that, again, think about this, they are unable to get medication, they're unable to get proper medical care, and they can't even bathe, and they're here weeks at a time. Weeks at a time.
Yes.
So,
and it also should be kept in mind that even when people who are limited for whatever reason soil themselves, there was also the example of a man who soiled himself, and he had to put his pants in the trash, and it wasn't taken out for, I think, like a day or 2.
Right. And
And I don't even know if he was given pants. I don't even know if he was given pants.
right, and again,
I forget if it even said that.
I don't think it even mentioned that. It just said that he had to throw his pants away, but that everybody had to, suffer. Let alone the other things too, where they were saying like, if people have to use the restroom and you're the one that has the, has to be the one that sleeps right next to the toilet, that's very dangerous for all, so many different types of pathogens, etc. So again, these are, and also there was that time where they did mention as well, prior, that there was a man who wasn't able to walk, I believe because he was a hemiplegic, right, if I remember correctly.
Yes.
And so
Yes.
the other men would carry him, but eventually, after so many days of horrible food, right, of essentially no nutrition, no clean water, nothing, they eventually
No sleep. No sleep either.
Yeah, no sleep. They got too tired and they couldn't take this man to use the restroom. And these were people that were willing to use their last, the last strength that they had, right, to still make sure that this man could use the restroom. But when they couldn't do it anymore, the agents didn't do anything. They wouldn't help them use the restroom. So with A, whether defendants' policy and practice of denying Broadview immigration detainees access to counsel violates their First and Fifth Amendments. Right. Whether defendants have instituted a policy and practice of systematically obstructing access to legal counsel. Whether defendants have instituted a policy and practice of using threats and coercion in order to procure signatures of immigration documents, including documents that waive rights and allow defendants to take people out of the country without process. D. Whether defendants have instituted a policy and practice of procuring signatures on immigration documents that are written in the language that the signer does not understand and which has not been translated. Right, exactly. We are in uncharted waters, and we do need justice for all of our brethren and all of our siblings. I pray that they might feel some relief soon. I hope that this is in their favor. E. Whether defendants have instituted a policy and practice of systematically overcrowding Broadview to a capacity that makes the constitutional conditions of confinement impossible, given the constraints of the facility. F. Whether defendants' policy and practice of overcrowding the Broadview facility and denying detainees adequate food, they said adequate food twice, water, bedding, medication, and sanitation violates the Fifth Amendment. Whether defendants have acted knowingly, purposefully, or recklessly in imposing the conditions described above. And it's important that they do make those three, they use knowingly, purposefully, or recklessly, right? Because then that means even if they try to argue that it was like, negligence, that would be reckless negligence, right? Like they didn't care about it. So it's important with the wording here. Whether any legitimate government purpose justifies the conditions described above. I. Whether Broadview maintains attorney visitation rooms that defendants are refusing to permit immigration detainees and their lawyers to access. J. Whether defendants systematically refuse to permit immigration detainees to conduct confidential calls of attorneys on their own cell phones or on any other phone within the facility. K. Whether defendants systematically refuse to connect attorneys who call the facility with their clients who are detained inside. L. Whether defendants have systematically denied entry to attorneys who have gone to the facility to consult with their clients. M. Whether defendants maintain medical services on site, including for purposes of conducting medical intakes and of detainees being processed in the facility and for treating people with pre-existing conditions. N. Whether defendants have food preparation facilities on site. O. Whether defendants have a policy of depriving detainees of adequate food and water. P. Whether defendants accommodate the dietary needs of people with religious and dietary restrictions or needs. Q. Whether defendants provide bedding for detainees who are kept at Broadview overnight. R. Whether detainees are forced to use the toilet in a manner that provides no privacy and can be overseen by other detainees and officers. S. Whether defendants systematically deprive detainees of access to basic hygiene products. And T. Whether the facility and hold rooms where detainees are being held are regularly cleaned.
And, from all that we read, I am going to say that it's a check mark on all of them. I kind of don't know how it couldn't be.
Right. I think to me, if just looking at this case and just having read it with you, I think they've definitely showcased the intent of their actions for sure.
Yeah. There's I don't know what how you could argue out of this. Like maybe they could, but it would have to be through some fucking bullshit. I'm gonna be really honest. There would have to be some really weird thing going on. Otherwise, because like I said, to me at least, it seems like through this, they very clearly done all of this. The proposed class meets the requirements of FedR Civ P 23A3. The name Playdon's claims are typical of those of the class because they are detained at Broadview and is subjected to the punitive conditions of confinement, including through denial of access to counsel that are challenged here, in violation of their and putative class members' constitutional rights. The proposed class meets the requirement of FedR Civ P23A4. The named plaintiffs have the requisite personal interest in the outcome of this action, and no interests adverse to the interests of the class. It will fairly and adequately represent the interests of all proposed class members. The proposed class is represented by counsel from the MacArthur Justice Center, ACLU of Illinois, and Eimer Stahl. Counsel collectively have extensive experience litigating class action lawsuits and other complex cases in federal court, including on behalf of detained people and non-citizens. This action is maintainable as a class action pursuant to Rule 23b1 because of the prosecution of separate action by individual detainees would create a risk of inconsistent and varying adjudications, which in turn would establish incompatible standards of conduct for Broadview. The proposed class meets the requirement of FedR Civ P 23b2. Defendants have acted on grounds generally applicable to the proposed class, their policies and practices of detaining people at Broadview in putative conditions, including the denial of access to counsel in violation of plaintiffs' and the putative class members' rights. Therefore, declaratory and injunctive relief are appropriate with respect to the proposed class as a whole. Each of the members of the putative class is or will be entitled to bring a complaint for injunctive or declarative relief to obtain relief from unlawful detention. Plaintiffs and the putative class members have been and are being substantially harmed by defendants' unconstitutional policies and practices, in addition to the harm that follows inherently from the deprivation of their constitutional rights. They suffer from pain and hunger, sleep deprivation, the exacerbation of pre-existing medical issues, and risk of new medical problems, harm to their immigration cases as a result of being forced to sign away their legal rights, and psychological and emotional harm. Their inability to access legal counsel has further harmed their ability to properly prepare for their legal proceedings, and in some cases has led to them being sent out of the country without representation.
And then, do you have anything you want to add to that, or?
Not really. It kind of just all speaks for itself. That's the worst part about this. It is just that horrible that I kind of don't know. Besides very specific things and bringing up and just continually bringing up what has happened again and again, what this has just said. I don't know what more to say because it just feels like.
Right. Okay.
I don't know how you could view this as anything other than an atrocity, a horror against these people.
Right, an ongoing horror that still is affecting people
Yeah.
in the millions at this point every single day. And yeah. So causes of action. Count 1. Violation of the Fifth Amendment. Conditions of confinement on behalf of plaintiffs and the putative class against all defendants. 202. Plaintiffs on behalf of the putative class repeat, re-allege, and incorporate by reference each and every allegation in the preceding paragraphs as it is fully set forth herein. Defendants have policies and practices of subjecting plaintiffs and the putative class members to objectively unreasonable conditions of confinement at Broadview. Under the Fifth Amendment, defendants must provide for plaintiffs and the putative class members' safety, health, safety, and well-being, while plaintiffs and the putative class are in defendants' custody. Conditions of confinement for individuals in civil detention is unconstitutional if they are objectively unreasonable. Conditions satisfy this standard when 1. The conditions are objectively serious, 2. Defendants acted purposefully, knowingly, or recklessly with respect to the consequences of their action, and 3. Defendants' actions were not rationally related to a legitimate governmental objective or excessive in relation to that purpose. The conditions of confinement plaintiffs and the putative class members face at Broadview are objectively serious. Defendants are holding plaintiffs and the putative class members for more than 12 hours. Let's see, how long is the rest of this? Okay, I'll leave it to you for the 208.
Broadview is neither designed nor equipped to detain individuals overnight. Defendants have a practice of not providing beds or bedding for plaintiffs and the putative class members, despite forcing them to spend one or more nights at Broadview. It should also be noted that this includes sleeping on concrete, yes, but also people having to sleep literally on top of each other, sometimes while being sat up. While being sat up. That's how bad it is. Defendants have policies and practices detaining plaintiffs and the putative class under conditions that are unsanitary and hazardous to their health. Defendants overcrowd the holding rooms in the facility, refuse to allow detained individuals to bathe, and deny them access to hygiene supplies. Defendants have failed to provide plaintiffs and the putative class members adequate access to basic necessities like food, water, sanitation facilities, access to medical and mental health care, and privacy. And it should also be noted, for like people who have periods. For people who have periods, being held for like 2 weeks or more is plenty of time for several people to have like had this happen. Not to mention already just like by having enough people in there, you are going to have somebody who need adequate supplies by having this many people. But like, people will have been experiencing this, like, almost certainly, because of just how long the stays are. And it's just crazy, along with like literally everything else. Defendants have acted purposely, knowingly, or recklessly in imposing the inhumane conditions at Broadview. Defendants have violated their own policies governing detention and holding facilities. Defendants ignore detainees' repeated requests for food, water, hygiene supplies, and other basic necessities. Defendants have also impeded access to counsel as set forth in this complaint and in count 2. Defendants systematically bar plaintiffs and the putative class members from initiating or having confidential phone calls with attorneys and from attorneys having calls with their clients inside the facility. Defendants have prohibited all attorney visits to Broadview, and thus plaintiffs and the putative class members have no way to consult with their counsel in person to review and or sign legal documents and seek legal remedies, including habeas petitions or bond motions. And then if you want to read 214.
Yeah. Widespread media reporting, letters from congressional representatives, and related lawsuits about Broadview and other similar facilities nationwide have put defendants on notice that the conditions at the facility are unacceptable. The government has no legitimate interest in subjecting detainees at Broadview to abusive conditions, including denial of access to counsel, that amount to punishment. No other government interest justifies the inhumane conditions at Broadview. ICE's policies applicable to detention and holding facilities demonstrate that any legitimate government objective sought to be achieved by detaining plaintiffs and the putative class members and others could be accomplished under more humane conditions. Defendants' policies and practices pertaining to conditions of confinement at Broadview are thus objectively unreasonable and violate the Due Process Clause of the Fifth Amendment. Defendants' policies and practices pertaining to conditions of confinement at Broadview, including denial of access to counsel, have caused, are causing, and if not enjoined, will continue to cause plaintiffs and putative class members to imminently suffer irreparable injury in the form of deprivation of their fundamental rights, along with a range of physical, psychological, and emotional harms. Plaintiffs and the putative class members are entitled to declaratory and injunctive relief to avoid any further injury.
Count 2. Violation of the First Amendment access to counsel on behalf of plaintiffs in the putative class. Plaintiffs on behalf of the putative class repeat, reallege, and incorporate by reference each and every allegation preceding paragraphs as if fully set forth herein. Plaintiffs and the putative class members have a First Amendment right to hire and consult attorneys while held at the Broadview ICE facility. The ability to maintain confidentiality is an important component of this First Amendment right. The government may not unreasonably restrict this right. Defendants have impeded access to counsel as set forth in this complaint and in Count 1. By unreasonably restricting plaintiffs and the putative class members from retaining, consulting, and communicating with counsel, defendants have violated and continue to violate their rights under the First Amendment. Plaintiffs and the putative class members have suffered and will imminently suffer irreparable injury as a result of the defendants' policies and practices, including the deprivation of their fundamental rights. Plaintiffs and putative class members are entitled to injunctive relief to avoid any further injury.
Count 3. Violation of due process 8 CFR subsection 28.8 C2 Annex 7. Administrative Procedure Act coerced and involuntary signatures and waivers of rights on behalf of plaintiffs and putative class against all defendants. Plaintiffs, on behalf of the putative class, repeat, allege, and incorporate by reference each and every allegation in the preceding paragraphs as if fully set forth herein. Defendants have adopted a policy and practice of coercing, threatening, and otherwise pressuring putative class members in order to procure their signature on immigration documents, including voluntary departure forms that waive their legal rights and allow defendants to send them out of the country. Defendants have adopted a policy and practice of requiring putative class members to sign immigration documents written exclusively in English without translation when putative class members do not speak English. In order to obtain putative class members' signature on immigration documents, defendants, as a part of their policy and practice, have employed coercive, threatening, and deceptive tactics. The Due Process Clause of the Fifth Amendment of the Constitution forbids coerced signatures and requires that, in order for non-citizens to waive rights to which they would otherwise be entitled, the waiver must be both knowing and voluntary. So again, I just want to highlight this here. The Constitution forbids what they're doing. That forbids coercing signatures, and that the only way that non-citizens could ever waive such rights, they have to be absolutely knowing the consequences therein and be completely voluntary. Defendants' policy and practice of coercing, threatening, and otherwise pressuring putative class members to sign immigration documents, including documents that waive their rights, violate the Due Process Clause. Defendants' policy and practice of compelling putative class members to sign immigration documents, including documents that waive their rights in a language they do not understand and without translation, violates the Due Process Clause. Defendants also violate the Due Process Clause under the doctrine of United States ex rel. Accardi versus Senesi, 347 U.S. 260, 1954, which requires Shaughnessy, my bad, which requires defendants to comply with their own administrative regulations, including 8 CFR subsection 287.8 C2 Annex 7, which are designed to safeguard individual interests. Defendants' policy and practice of threatening, coercing, and otherwise pressuring putative class members to sign immigration documents and or to waive their rights violates 8 CFR subsection 287.8 C2 Annex 7, which prohibits the use of threats, coercion, or physical abuse by the designated immigration officer to induce a suspect to waive his or her rights or to make a statement.
Defendants' policies and practices of procuring signatures on untranslated documents and using coercion and threats to obtain signatures and waivers of rights is also final agency action within the meaning of the Administrative Procedure Act. Okay, yeah, so it's. I assume what this is saying. I don't know. I don't know what it means by final agency action. Does it mean like it's the last thing they can do, or
is also final agency action? Oh, so that means that they cannot address it themselves. Like it cannot be an internal thing.
Oh, okay. Within the meaning of the Administrative Procedure Act, 5 U.S.C. subsection 704. Defendant's final agency action is not in accordance with law within the meaning of 5 U.S.C. subsection 706 2a because it is contrary to defendant's own regulations, 8 CFR subsection 287.8 2c 2, which is enforceable against defendants under United States Accardi v. Shaughnessy, 347 U.S. 260 1954. Defendant's final agency action is also contrary to constitutional right in the meaning of 5 U.S.C. subsection 706 2b because it violates the due process protections of the Fifth Amendment. Defendant's final agency action is also arbitrary, capricious, and an abuse of discretion, 5 U.S.C. subsection 706 2a. Defendant's policies and practices of procuring signatures on untranslated documents and using coercions and threats to obtain signatures and waivers of rights have caused, are causing, and if not remedied, will continue to cause plaintiffs and putative class members to imminently suffer irreparable injury in the form of deprivation of their fundamental rights and deprivation of their procedural and substantive rights under the Immigration and Nationality Act relating to their immigration status, immigration proceedings, their rights not to be sent out of the United States. Plaintiffs are entitled to injunctive relief, and plaintiffs and the putative class members are entitled to declaratory relief in order to avoid any further injury. Plaintiffs and the putative class members are entitled to an order under the Administrative Procedure Act holding unlawful, setting aside, and vacating the defendant's final agency action as set forth in this complaint and this count, 5 U.S.C. subsection 7062.
Okay, yeah, so that last part, so like all of the things that they've done that would be under their direct jurisdiction would to vacate that, so that way so they can't even say that they were trying to do something. So prayer for relief. Wherefore, plaintiffs request that the court grant the following relief. 1. Declare that the suit is maintainable as a class action pursuant to the Federal Rules of Civil Procedure 23A, B1, and B2. 2. Enter judgment for plaintiffs and the putative class against the defendants. 3. Declare the defendants' policies and practice of denying plaintiffs and the putative class right to retain, consult, and communicate confidentially with counsel violates the First Amendment. 4. Declare the defendants' policy and practice of denying plaintiffs and the putative class access to counsel violates the Fifth Amendment Due Process Clause. 5. Declare that the conditions of confinement imposed by defendants at Broadview violates the Fifth Amendment Due Process Clause. 6. With respect to counts 1 and 2, preliminarily and permanently order defendants to a. Ensure with respect to living conditions at Broadview that the hold rooms at Broadview contain no more than one detainee for each 50 square feet of space, not including an area within 8 feet of any toilet. Each detainee should be held overnight is provided a clean bedding mat and bedding for sleeping. 3. The hold rooms to be cleaned thoroughly on an ongoing basis and be furnished with the adequate supplies of soap, towels, toilet paper, toothbrushes, and toothpaste and menstrual products. 4. Hold rooms have access to sufficient toilets for class members, and that class members are able to use toilets outside of the view of other detainees, defendants as officers, or staff. 5. Hold rooms have access to significant showers for class members, and that class members are permitted regular showers outside of the view of staff or detainees of a different gender. 6. Class members be provided with clean clothing and a private area to change clothing. 7. Class members be provided full meals at least 3 times per day that meet the United States recommended daily allowances and accommodate class members' religious or dietary restrictions. 8. Class members be provided with as much bottled potable water as they need. 9. Class members have access to prescribed medications and medical and mental health care, including emergency and non-emergency medical and mental health care. Let me see how. Okay, I guess I will stop at B's and let you start there.
Alrighty. B. Ensure with respect to council access at Broadview that 1. Class members have the means, capability, and access to make ongoing, confidential, unmonitored, unrecorded, free, and temporarily unrestricted calls to legal representatives and prospective legal representatives, including allowing for connection to outside interpretation services during the call within 3 hours of being detained at Broadview, or sooner if transfer is expected within 3 hours of arrival, and at least once during each subsequent 12-hour period while they are detained. 2. Class members have the means, capability, and access to schedule a call promptly with legal representatives or prospective legal representatives. 3. Class members have access to sufficient telephones to accommodate class members' legal calls. 4. Legal representatives are able to schedule confidential legal calls with detainees at Broadview within 3 hours of requests made during business hours. 5. Confidential legal visitation is permitted 7 days per week, 8 hours per day, on business days, and 4 hours per day on weekends and holidays. 7. Defendants accurately update the location of detainees held at Broadview in defendant ICE's online detainee locator system within 3 hours of their arrival at the facility. Order defendants to provide written notice of rights to detainees, including their rights with respect to living conditions and access to counsel. Order defendants to provide the notice of rights in all other ICE or DHS communications, including any forms, agreements, stipulations, or other documents relating to a class member's immigration status, proceedings, or removal. To class members in a language they understand, provide interpretation or assistance to detainees with limited English proficiency or who are illiterate. I don't know if you wanted to do 9.
Yeah, I'll do 9. With respect to count 3, A. Declare that defendants' policies and practice of coercing, threatening, and otherwise pressuring plaintiffs and class members to sign immigration documents and or to waive rights violates the Fifth Amendment Due Process Clause, the Accardi Doctrine, and 8 CFR subsection 287.8 C2, Annex 7. B. Declare the defendants' policies and practice of procuring signatures from plaintiff Moreno Gonzalez and class members on immigration documents in a language that they do not understand without translation violates the Fifth Amendment Due Process Clause. C. Vacate, set aside, and hold unlawful defendants' policy and practice of using coercion and threats to procure detainees' signatures on immigration documents and or to waive rights. Vacate, set aside, and hold unlawful defendants' policies and practice of procuring detainee signatures on untranslated documents. E. Enjoin defendants from using any form of threat, coercion, abuse, or any other pressure to obtain plaintiff signatures or on any form or to obtain their agreement to be removed or taken out of the country, and to forego any rights, procedures, or benefits in the INA, which is the Immigration and Nationality Act, Naturalization Act, or the Constitution. F. Enjoin defendants from procuring Plaintiff Moreno Gonzalez's signature on an untranslated document written in a language he does not read and understand.
Enjoin defendants from retaliating in any form against plaintiffs, any class member, or any declarants or witnesses in this matter, their immigration proceedings, or in any other capacity for asserting rights or otherwise participating in this proceeding. 11. Enjoin defendants from transferring plaintiffs outside of the judicial district during the pendency of these proceedings. 12. Award counsel for plaintiffs in the putative class reasonable attorney fees and costs in this action under the Equal Access to Justice Act 28 U.S.C. subsection 2412 and on any other basis justified under law. And 13. Grant such other relief as the court deems just and proper. And I was actually wrong. It was, or at least the end of this, is October 30. It might have been a different date at the beginning.
Right.
But I might have been wrong.
Yeah. No, I think it was October. Gotta zoom up really quickly. Sorry about that. Filed 10/30/25. So yeah. Also, I got a quick question from Columbia Rican, and I wanted to respond to it. Do you think that if this lawsuit goes to the favor of, for the defendants, the plaintiffs against DHS and ICE, can this be used to legally go after the Trump admin once they are out of the White House, or at least when the Dems take back Congress and Senate in 2026? I mean, if this does go, and really and again, this is why I found it important to and I do find it important to continue to ask Envy what she thinks about this, is that I think it would be very difficult for me to see how they could, unless they were to find some loophole or something that really isn't there, as far as I am aware from having looked over this. But again, I am not an attorney, so I don't know. And definitely, the law that I do know is not immigration law of the United States. Is that I feel that if it were to go in favor of the plaintiffs, that then yes, there could be other lawsuits that could be taken against the administration in particular, and could hopefully bring an end to so much of this anxiety and terror that we are living through. As for the ICC, since you asked about that, but first quickly, if Democrats take power back or whatever, it could be done even beforehand, I would say. But it also is a question of how far does this go, right? Because if it goes up to the Supreme Court, then of course it's a 6-3 conservative majority. But they recently did say that Trump cannot deploy the National Guard to Chicago, for example. So, there's that. But yes, this would open up, particularly the defendants in this case, the ones that are named, right? In this case, Kristi Noem, Todd Leons, Marcos Charles, Samuel Olson, etc., to further lawsuits. Some which could definitely be class action, some of which could be by individual plaintiffs. As for the ICC, there is... Now, it could be possible that people bring charges against particular people from the United States if they committed the crime on, and this is very particular, the United States is not a signatory of the Rome Statute. So crimes that are committed within the United States' borders cannot be tried by the ICC. However, any crimes that were committed on the soil of another country that is a signatory to the Rome Statute would be able to be taken to the ICC. Whether or not that would result in any whether that would result in some form of legal redress vis-a-vis the United States, that would be difficult to say, because the United States has done the extraordinary step of sanctioning the court, because of indicting and of issuing arrest warrants for Yoav Gallant and Benjamin Netanyahu, for charges of extermination, etc. So it could be taken to court, but could they be tried? Again, that's a whole different story. But technically, any crimes committed on the soil of any country that is, which is like I said, one of the first things you do at the ICC is to determine jurisdiction. So any crimes committed on the soil, if people from if that country is willing to take this to the court, the chief prosecutor could then issue arrest warrants and could start proceedings. But again, this is one of those times when imperialist impunity definitely sticks out quite a bit. Remember, the Supreme Court would probably be impeached and removed just as the same process as the president if we have enough seats in both the House and the Senate. Right, and there are many other things that could happen. I mean, I know that there was someone that wanted, I don't know if they did or not, because they said it December, but I haven't really heard anything, that they were going to issue articles of impeachment against Trump. But again, I'm not too sure about where that has gone. So, yeah. Anything else that, sorry, I didn't mean to, I just wanted to make sure I answered the questions.
No, you're all good. No, you're totally all good. No, I don't know if I have anything else besides, I guess, a few comments from people.
Yeah.
Estelle also noted also targeting individual ICC judges. I think that was part of what you're talking about.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, and then Jim also mentioned the U.S. also hadn't signed the Rome Statute. Yeah. Shakespeare brought that up. Shakespeare was saying if any of this happened on non-U.S. soil, but a country that was it was committed by a person who wasn't committed by a person who wasn't on U.S. soil, was someone under, but it was in a country under the Rome Statute.
Right, like that would be the only thing would be if those crimes were committed on the soil of a country that is currently a signatory, of which, I mean, technically speaking, El Salvador is a signatory, but I don't know that whether or not that would happen, or if, because again, the illegal actions have to take place on the soil of that country. So yeah, that would be the main thing. I don't know if people had anything else.
Yeah, no. It's I'm glad we finished this. This was really good. This is really good. Another long stream, but I think it's well worth. I think it's time well worth spending.
Yeah, me too.
Jim says they just wouldn't prosecute. It's too dangerous, really. But yeah, I kind of don't think anything like this would ever happen, sadly. Um, or if it did, don't even know if it would really go anywhere. Is the other issue.
Right, that's another huge thing, is whether it would even be, like, even if they were to, because one of the things that they did recently in the United States was that they sanctioned the judges in the pre-trial chambers that, heard the case being made for issuing the arrest warrants. So again, they were doing their job, and so of course it's heavily politicized. But yeah, I think, to me, hopefully one day there will be justice. These people will be brought to justice, because they definitely need to be. But hopefully this lawsuit here is one step towards redressing some of the horrors they have put people through.
And before we end stream, I have one thing to do, at least in my chat. I have a Discord server. I will probably end up making a channel for this stuff, to where we can kind of keep it to horrible stuff like this. We've been going. I think I already did, but I'm not sure how I did it. I might have done it a little bit badly. But I'll probably do something where everyone can post anything they find or anything they have. But I'm going to be posting a link to my Discord server, and as well as Shakespeare's. If I can, let's see. Can I make my own invite link? I think so. Yeah, I can. Yes, I will also post Shakespeare's.
Yeah, and every Friday night we have community night where we watch a film and then have a lot of fun chatting and other stuff afterwards. So be sure to join for that. And as for me on Twitch, I'm going to raid out. If everyone could please get in the machine, so we can head on over to Galactic Streamlord and make sure to tell him hello for me.